Good evening. Tonight's going to be the third pillar of optimal health. We're talking about nutrition, some of the stuff that this guy purports to make. So this is French Fry, my co-host. I'm Dr. Twyman. So from slinging fries to saving lives. So yes, I did actually work at McDonald's at one point. I was very, very good at making fries. They were excellent. They're crispy. But they probably were not so great for the arteries and the glycocalyx. So now I have to reverse all the damage I potentially caused 20 plus years ago. So tonight, I'm going to go a little bit through my kind of up-to-date nutrition protocol of 2023. If you follow me for any time online, you know I don't talk much about nutrition because I find it, yes, we all have to eat, but there's a lot more things that are interesting, light for one of them, that really determine how healthy and optimal your body's going to be working. But since I get asked so much, I'll go through kind of what I'm currently thinking from nutrition. This is influenced just by my personal experience, my cardiovascular training, my colleagues that I hang out with, and many of the books that I'm following right now. So, I'm always going to tie it back to light and also mitochondria. So this is a little Mitomite guide tonight. So think about your mitochondria as engines. They do a lot more for you, but tonight we're going to do the engine side of things. So you want to know, where did you get your mitochondria from? So your mitochondria only come from your mom. You can figure out what your maternal haplotype is by doing 23andMe. That haplotype basically tells you where your original people came from. Are you equatorial or are you northern? Northern latitude, that is. So it sort of depends on what your mitochondria engines are to begin with and where do you physically live in the world. That's why there's not a perfect diet that everybody, 78 billion people on Earth are all doing. It totally is tied to your solar light cycles. So, they haven't yet, from what I understand, that totally proven that their timing of your meals is more important than what you eat, but it's probably at least as important with that. So I start first with timing of your meals. Sun up to sundown, wherever you're at in the world, is, in my mind, your ideal nutrition feeding window. If you want to be tighter than that, that's fine, but be careful. You just want to make sure you're getting enough macros with your protein so that you can trigger muscle growth, muscle protein synthesis. So there's multiple apps that tell you, when the sun's going to rise or, go down. Your iPhone happen to do that. I'm kind of crazy about my circadian rhythm management, so I have a little watch so I can see wherever I'm in the world when the sun is going to rise. And I usually try to keep my feeding windows in that. So I've already finished eating for today. It's still light out. And I generally want to not eat anything 3 to 4 hours before I go to bed. Somehow my liver and gut basically shut off for the night and just helps entrain my circadian rhythms so I can sleep better. So again, focusing about the engines. It's mostly about electrons and protons, but we'll do a little bit about electrons first. So food is energy and information. You are not breaking down carbohydrates, proteins, and fats in your mitochondria. They've gotten broken down outside the cell, and then they're getting put into the mitochondria as electrons and protons. The electrons go through the mitochondria respiratory proteins, kind of like hopscotch. The faster they get to the end, there's a little protein called the ATPase. The faster it spins, more ATP comes out. ATP is one of the energy currencies that your body's making. So think of electrons as the currency that your body needs. You want to gather more electrons than you are losing back to your environment. So that's kind of like the Pac-Man analogy. So Pac-Man's gobbling up the electrons, that's you eating food to get the electrons, and you're trying not to lose them back to the environment. That's where EMF radiation comes in. So the more Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, 5G that you're exposed to, that's knocking electrons out of the electron valence shells of your cells, and you're losing the electrons back to the environment. So food is energy and information. Electrons. Fat is more energy dense. That's more electrons. Where else can you get electrons? This is back to the story of earthing and grounding, which I've done talks on in the past. This is where, sunlight, especially the infrared spectrum, you could also use likely photobiomodulation and sauna to do it, but the infrared spectrum basically helps the water in your body charge separate into exclusion zone water. That's the structured water that lines all the biological surfaces in your cell. Those, exclusion zone waters, that was heavily discussed and researched by Gerald Pollack at the University of Washington. So if you're very interested in, learning more about exclusion zone water, if you're not already aware of the topic, his introductory book, The Fourth Phase of Water, really lays it out. You basically are a water battery, and it's the infrared spectrum of light that charge separates the water in your body into this fourth phase. It's a gel-like coating. There's a negative charge and positive charge, and whenever you have a negative charge and positive charge, there's basically a battery. So you can basically get not free energy, but because it's radiation energy from the sun, but this is another source of energy. Most people default to living indoors, they're going to have to eat more electrons essentially. So this is likely the reason why when you're in Mexico or anywhere where you got stable sun, your feet are connected to the earth, you generally don't have a huge appetite when you're outside those days because you're absorbing electrons through two different mechanisms other than you just eating those foods. So already went through kind of the timing of meals. Talking in the past couple weeks about stress. Stress is still ubiquitous, but stress, from blue light, these are different blue blockers that I wear sometimes. I just want my brain to know what time of day it is, and I don't want to be spiking cortisol at the wrong time of day. When you're under stress, your cortisol levels increase. When cortisol increases, your blood sugar increases. So, not only carbohydrates raise your blood sugar, blue light stress does as well. And we've talked previously about sleep. Sleep is when your engines are tuning themselves up. You're doing autophagy, you're doing apoptosis. So if you do not sleep well, you're not going to get the same results that you really want by eating a perfectly clean, organic diet, whatever that means to you. That's fuel. Your engines need to be tuned up. If you do not sleep well, that'd be like having an engine that you've never changed the spark plugs in. You've never done any type of preventative maintenance on your engine and expect that when you put the premium gas into this engine, it's going to go 200 miles an hour the next day. You have to work on your sleep first, then you work on the nutrition side of things. But once you got the stress and the sleep dialed in, what else can you do? Start first with protein. That is very satiating. It's going to help balance your blood sugars. We'll talk about that in just a moment. But most people very much underdose their protein intake. You bare minimum need 90 grams of protein a day, but ideally it's probably around a gram per pound of your ideal body weight. So how much protein is in 30 grams? About a deck of cards or your palm of your hand is about 30 grams. You want that at least 3 times a day to turn on your muscle growth. Your muscles are heavily mitochondrial dense. Your heart and brain are the two major organs, but your skeletal muscle system is heavy in mitochondria as well, and they're handling up near 80% of your glucose. So if you don't move your muscles, your metabolism slows down, but you need protein to build out more muscle units. So shooting for at least a gram per pound of ideal body weight is what you want to go for. Now carbohydrates, there's a different tolerance for everybody. The more physically active you are, the healthier your muscles are, the more carbohydrates you probably can get away with. And if you really want to be kind of the biohacker, then get yourself a continuous glucose monitor. They have different types. They last up to 2 weeks, some of them, and see which foods tend to spike your blood sugar, and see how much carbohydrate load you can get at any meal. You're a little bit more insulin sensitive in the morning time than you're in the evening, so probably would front load your carbohydrates in the morning time or right around the time you're about to exercise, so that your muscles hopefully will be able to pull in that glucose and start burning for energy. Or go for a walk after you eat the big carbohydrate meal to upregulate the GLUT4 receptors and suck that glucose in to the muscles. You can be more data driven as well. You can get your resting metabolic rate. You can figure out your zone 2 kind of thresholds with a VO2 max. Then that is the heart rate, and we're going to talk more about exercise next week. Zone 2 is the peak heart rate that your body can burn fat in your mitochondria. Fat's more electron dense, but you got to burn it slower. When your heart rate goes faster, you're going to go into kind of the only burning sugar mode. So healthier mitochondria, can burn both. You want them to be like a hybrid. Now for the fats, depends. There's 3,000 genes or so that can affect your lipid metabolism, but one you should know ideally would be your ApoE, like echo. You want to know you're an ApoE 2, 3, or 4, and you have 2 copies of them. So you could have a 2-2, 2-3, 3-3, 3-4, 4-4, or very rare, a 2-4. That ApoE genotype somewhat determines how your body's going to handle the different fats that you eat. In my office, I frequently do the Boston Heart Lab panels on people. There's 2 tests that I like on it. The cholesterol balance test tells me if you have issues with hyperabsorbing the sterols or the fats from your gut. And also there's a cholesterol balance test that looks at how well your body's absorbing different saturated fats, trans fats, which you shouldn't be eating, polyunsaturated fats, that's mostly going to be the omega-3s. DHA is extremely important for brain health. It's also critically important for when that light hits your body. It helps shuttle the energy to your cells. It's a pi electron cloud around this DHA. You're not using the DHA for fuel, you're using it for the electron cloud to be able to transmit the energy to the rest of the cells. But you can also see your monounsaturated fat. So, frequently patients see me for their abnormal lipids. This panel tells me, is it a dietary issue that might be driving it? Talk about timing a little bit earlier, but one thing I would add, I recently was at a conference giving a talk to physicians about the endothelioglycocalyx. It's called The Story of the Endothelioglycocalyx. But I was sitting in the audience listening to other speakers present, and they presented a fascinating basically study that showed, does the timing of your meals matter? And this wasn't the exact data, but this is kind of the gist of it, was that think about if you go to a steakhouse, how does the order of the food come out? Well, they usually serve you, your cocktail and bread at the beginning, then you get a salad, then you get the steak, and then you get your dessert. Well, they monitored these people's blood sugars during that typical timing of the meals, and then they reversed essentially the order that they gave it to them. They gave them the protein first, then the greens, and then the bread or the alcohol, and then dessert last. Just switching up the order of the food had a difference in how high their glucose spiked. So I think they were having everybody wear continuous glucose monitors with that, because it helps with the body's sensing of when insulin's going to be released. So if you eat carbs first, the body's like, oh, this meal's going to be huge in carbohydrates, and you probably will overshoot your insulin response. If you put protein and fat in first, I think it's somewhere near like 40 to 50% reduction in your excursions of your blood sugar. So eat your protein and fat first, even if you're going to be having a carb-heavy type of meal. Water, I personally drink spring water, just like the taste of it, but you just want to avoid fluoride in your water source. Fluoride is a dielectric blocker in physics terms. That fluoride limits the amount of energy that the water in your body can store. So that's why people see me in the office, I'm always asking about the type of water they drink. If you're drinking reverse osmosis water and adding minerals back, that's fine. If you're like glacial water, if you have well water, that's fine. Just make sure you don't have heavy metals in it. But you really want to avoid fluoride in your drinking water. How much water? The old kind of recommendations is like a half an ounce per pound of your body weight. So you should consider. But I've seen some people talking about 80 ounces in the first 10 hours from when you awaken. So I usually get up in the morning by 5 a.m., have a big glass of water, then a big glass of water that has some electrolytes in it, then start drinking the coffee if you want to drink coffee. But hydrate first. I didn't talk too much about tracking macros. I personally don't track macros other than just make sure I'm getting enough protein in my diet. If you're trying to gain weight or lose weight, tracking macros is going to be a little more important. There's multiple apps that can do that. MyFitnessPal, the Carbon app are probably two big ones I've seen most patients use. But back to the timing, it really depends on what your goals are. But if you're metabolically unhealthy, you're insulin resistant, you're overweight, you're probably going to have your first meal be your largest meal. This can help with your leptin sensitivity. Your lunch or your middle meal should be a little bit smaller, and your last meal of the day should probably be the smallest meal, like a snack potentially, but still getting at least your 30 grams of protein during that sitting. So that's what I want to kind of share with you guys tonight, is my updated ideas on nutrition. I know this might be a little bit rambling, but I'm putting together a little bit more detailed, bullet-pointed handout at some point for my patients that work with me at Apollo Cardiology. This is especially be released to people who are in my heart attack prevention membership. So I will be doing a new webinar for my relaunched heart attack prevention program that is going to go live in August of 2023. That's the 4th anniversary of Apollo Cardiology, my practice in St. Louis that focuses on the early detection of atherosclerosis and really helps you reduce your risk of having a heart attack or stroke. I have a membership program called Heart Attack Proof, and I'm going to be doing a webinar this Friday, 2 p.m. Central Time. It'll be via Zoom. If you're interested in attending live, hit me up with a direct message, or if you're on my email list, I'll be sending it out on my email list. If you don't already have my email contact information, you can go to my website. It's drtwyman.com/news. and you can sign up, and I'll send you the information about it. So thank you guys for your time and attention. Hope you guys are enjoying your Memorial Day. And next week I'll be back for the fourth pillar of optimal health. I'll be talking about exercise. So have a great week, guys.